operation. So in general, a sequence has even symmetry if time reversal results in an identical sequence. That means if you get xn as equal to x of minus n modulo n, then the sequence has circular even symmetry. And if time reversal changes the signs of the samples, then the sequence has odd symmetry. So this is the condition for odd symmetry. Whatever you were like having the properties for basic discrete sequences which were existing from minus infinity to plus infinity, now because of the periodicity property in the time domain, you will get modulo operation. So you have xn equal to x minus n, modulo capital N. So we can avoid this modulo operation by using this equation. We have seen that this equation shows how modulo operation is connected to the linear operation. So a circular operation or a circular folding can be written out like this. This is in linear time axis. So the value at n equal to 0 remains fixed, and the other values they get reversed or time reversed. So you will have x0, xn minus 1, xn minus 2 up to x of n. That is the time reversed sequence. So if time reversal changes the signs of the sample, sequence has odd symmetry. If it doesn't change the signs of the sample, then it has even symmetry. So if you use this formula, whatever I just showed you now, then you get the definition for circular even symmetry as this, and circular odd symmetry as this. So in these two equations, you are avoiding the modulo n operation. Is this clear? Circular symmetry?
Yes, sir.
So let us now move into we talk about the symmetry properties of real valued sequences. So earlier we know that DTFT satisfies the property of conjugate symmetry, that is x j omega is equal to x star of minus j omega. So DTFT follows the property of conjugate symmetry for real sequences. That means the magnitude, the frequency response or the magnitude response is an even signal and the phase response is an odd signal. Similar cases will, or similar properties hold for the DFT. And to develop these properties, let us start with the most general case where you have x of n not as a real sequence but as a complex sequence, and x of k, which is the DFT, is generally a complex sequence. So we have both x of n as well as x of k as complex. So we can write the complex numbers x of n as x real part of n plus j imaginary part of x of n. N goes from 0 to n minus 1. Similarly, xk can be written as xrk plus jxik. So when we take the DFT of x of n, so we can split and write the original form of the DFT. So it is summation n equal to 0 to n minus 1, x of n into w base subscript capital N to the power minus kn or wkn. So that is equal to e to the power minus j 2 pi kn by n. So if you see, if you expand that exponential to the power minus j 2 pi kn by n, you will get cos of 2 pi by n kn and sine of 2 pi by n kn. So if you take out, if you collect the real part, then you will have this as the real coefficient or the real part of the DFT coefficient xk. So xrk is the real part of the DFT coefficient, which is supposed to be a complex number. So you get this like this, and xik similarly you get as here. So this is the imaginary part of the DFT coefficient. So if you put xk, which is a complex number like xrk and xik in the reverse operation or the inverse DFT operation, then you get the last two equations. Okay, so if xn is real, then the imaginary part of x of n will be 0. So you can set this guy as 0. Okay, in the previous equation, this guy can be set as 0. So xrk is just equal to this, and wherever you see xi of n, you just put it as 0 here in these two equations. So then you get this formula. So xr of k is equal to xn into cos 2 pi by n into kn, and xik is obtained as xn into sin 2 pi by n kn, summation n equal to 0 to n minus 1. So this is a simplified form of DFT equation when you have x of n, which is a real sequence. Okay. So we can now find out that xrk is equal to xr minus k modulo n. That means the real part of the DFT coefficients is supposed to be an even signal. So without using modulo operation, you can write it like this. So it is obeying circular symmetry, that is, it is circularly even. Similarly, the imaginary part of xk is an odd signal, so circularly odd. So there is a modulo n operation here. So it has this conjugate symmetry property. So the DFT coefficients also have conjugate symmetry property, but the conjugate symmetry property is coming with the modulo operation. Earlier you had x star of e to the power j omega equal to x of minus e to the power j omega. Now you have this condition, and this condition gives you conjugate symmetry. Here the extra thing that you have is modulo n. So from the figure we can see that this is a 7, or it is actually an 8-point sequence. You have taken its DFT and you have found out the real part and the imaginary part. Similarly, you have here a 7-point DFT and you have found out its 7-point discrete sequence is given to you. You have found out a 7-point DFT and you have found out the real part and the imaginary part of the DFT coefficients. So if you see both the diagrams, for the odd number of DFT like samples, or the odd number of discrete samples, you will have the center of symmetry around in the middle of two sequence samples, whereas for even capital N, you will have the center of symmetry at n by 2. So the center of symmetry is the diameter of the circle passing through value 0. So this is the diameter of the circular buffer. Last class I had shown you the circular buffer, everyone. Are you able to see the slide?
Yes. Yes, sir.
So in that circular buffer, a line passing through x equal to or x0 is actually our center of symmetry. So for even n, the center of symmetry passes through n by 2. So whatever we had as capital N equal to 8, the center of symmetry will pass through the index 4. See, this is the index 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Center of symmetry passes through n by 2. Whereas for n equal to odd, that is capital N equal to 7, the center of symmetry will pass between two values of k. Okay, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So two values of k, it will pass through in between. Is this okay? So this shows you all the relationships of conjugate symmetry property of DFT for real signals. So this is what I just wanted to discuss with you for circular symmetry, and real signals play a very important role. So we have to satisfy the property of conjugate symmetry for real signals. Now, let me come to an important idea which will lead to what is called circular convolution. So we had seen circular folding. Now we go one step ahead and do circular shift of a sequence. So if you have a sequence xn with its dtft x e to the power j omega, then if you multiply e to the power minus j omega m with x e to the power j omega, this is going to shift the spectrum. So, or rather this is actually the Fourier transform of the time shifted sequence x of n minus m. Okay. So this is not going to shift the spectrum. It is actually the time the Fourier transform of the time shifted sequence x of n minus m. Sorry. Huh? So if you multiply e to the power minus j omega m with xe j omega, then you get the spectrum of the time shifted sequence x of n minus m. So then it is natural to ask what happens to an n point sequence x of n if we multiply its n point DFT xk by this factor, that is e to the power minus j 2 pi by capital N into k into small m. Okay. So if I multiply the DFT xk by this factor and take the IDFT, that means I form a complex coefficient zk equal to wn mk into xk, and I take the IDFT of this right hand side, then what do I get? So it turns out that the answer is that we get x of n minus m modulo capital N. Okay. So how to show that? So that is called circular shifting of a sequence. So x of n minus m is linear shifting. Circular shifting is x of n minus m modulo n. So x of n, the inverse DFT expression is written like this. So in this expression, you introduce this guy zk. So z of n can be written now like this. There is a typo here in the book. It should be WNKM. Okay, this is not n. This is m. All of you are able to see my cursor?
Yes, sir.
There is a mistake in the book. So Wn capital, K small m into xk into Wn minus kn. You collect the W terms, it will become Wn to the power minus k into n minus m. Now using the periodicity property, you can write out this quality. So the periodicity of this complex twiddle factor WNKN gives you this equality. So now you can write Z of n, which is the inverse DFT of ZK, which again is the product of XK with this factor. We can now write the inverse DFT as Z of n equal to x into or x of n minus m modulo n. So we get this DFT pair. So a shifted or circularly shifted discrete sequence x of n minus m modulo n will have its DFT multiplied by Wn into to the power capital small k m. So this factor will multiply xk if you have circularly shifted discrete sequence. So this circular shifting is handy while understanding the idea of circular convolution. So because in a convolution, you have to shift a signal. You have to flip the signal. That means you have to do circular folding. You have to do time reversal. So you have to take x of n, do a time reversal. You get x of minus n modulo n. So that is circular folding. After doing circular folding, you are supposed to do circular shifting. So that is the idea here. So we will try to understand circular convolution. Up to now, is it clear everything?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the diagram for circular shifting. So what happens in circular shifting? Let us look at the first diagram, that is x of n. Then you get the periodic replication or the periodization of x of n as x tilde of n. So you have infinite like chunks, capital N length long, that is x tilde of n. And you are supposed to now circularly shift this x tilde of n, or linearly shift x tilde of n. So let us see z tilde of n is equal to x tilde n minus 2. So we are circularly shifting x of n. So here we are linearly shifting x tilde n by x tilde n minus 2. So when I delay the sample by 2, or delay the sequence by 2, so I am going to get these two extra samples inside this region shown by shaded blue. The shaded blue region contains samples from 0 to n minus 1. So we see that because of the shift of 2 points in x tilde n minus 2 towards the right, you get some part of the left sequence coming in. Okay. Now, to do circular shifting, we have to crop out this region 0 to n minus 1 in the linearly shifted z tilde n. So I will crop out this part, and this part will turn out to be something like this. So if you just look at the last two elements here in the first diagram, the first plot, look at the last two elements here. This guy is appearing at 0 and this guy is appearing at 1. Okay. So if you see, this is a set of cumbersome steps. So this can be avoided by using a circular buffer. In the circular buffer, you have x of n shown here. Then x of minus n is just the folded version of this guy. So whatever is appearing at n minus 1 will appear at 1. And to do this folding operation, x of minus n modulo capital N, you are just flipping around the center of symmetry 0, or that circle, that diameter of the circle is from 0 to n by 2. And if you want to shift, you have to go anti-clockwise and shift by m number of samples. Then you will get x of n minus m modulo capital N. So that is the idea of circular shift. So, like, we are asking the question that rather, yeah, here we are here. So we have now seen that z of n, which is obtained like this, can be now written in terms of circular shift, and we have this property of this DFT pair. So xk, if you multiply with this number or this complex coefficient WNKM, then you get x of n minus m modulo n sequence in the discrete time. So let us come to what is called circular convolution. So when you take the product of the DTFT of two sequences, suppose you have a sequence h of n and you have another sequence x of n, and you find its DTFT capital H of e to the power j omega and capital X e to the power j omega. Now, when you take the product of the DTFT in the frequency domain, then you are actually taking a convolution of the two sequences in the time domain. So the convolution expression is shown on the left. So you are taking the convolution from minus infinity to plus infinity, because it's supposed to be a aperiodic sequence. Both the sequences are supposed to be aperiodic. So it's going from minus infinity to plus infinity, h of m into x of n minus 1. This is linear convolution. Okay, make a distinction. This is called linear convolution. Now what we are going to study is circular convolution. So here it will be x of n minus m modulo n. So when you multiply two DFT coefficients, h of k into x of k, to get y of k, then the inverse DFT will give you the circular convolution between h of n and x of n minus m modulo n. That is the idea. So the question that we are asking is, what kind of operation in the time domain corresponds to the multiplication of two capital N point DFTs? So if yk is equal to h of k into x of k, then what is y of n? That is the question that we are asking. Is this clear? So we'll go from basics and we'll try to understand. So if you take the inverse DFT of the product on the right hand side, you get this. So are you able to see my slide?
Yes, sir.
So if you take the right hand side inverse DFT, you get this formula. So this can be simplified by using the DFT inside this formula. So you can write it as hm into wn km, m going from 0 to n minus 1. Similarly, xk can be found out by L going from 0 to n minus 1, xl into wn kl. So this is just hk and xk expanded out, and you have wn to the power minus kn here. So we see that you can now interchange the order of summations. So here you are taking m outside, and you have got h of m here, and you have taken L here, and you pushed k summation here. So you will have h of m here, then x of l here, and wn k m plus l minus n. You collect out all the twiddle factors. So then you get this particular term. Okay. So it turns out that this term is equal to 1 only when m plus l minus n is equal to r into capital N, according to the periodicity property of the exponential e to the power minus j 2 pi k n by capital N. So according to the periodicity property of the complex exponential, this condition is satisfied. Only then you will get a non-zero y of n. Otherwise, y of n is equal to 0, because this term will go to 0, because the complex exponentials are supposed to be orthogonal to each other. Is it clear, everyone? So the summations in the previous equation, this equation, they are only non-zero if the index L satisfies the condition L equal to n minus m plus r into capital N, that is n minus small m modulo capital N. So now our convolution expression becomes h of m into x of n minus m modulo capital N. So this is circular shifting. So to do circular convolution, we have to circularly shift the sequence. So we'll see how simple it is actually. It appears a little daunting, but it's pretty simple. So if you use a circular buffer, then you can do this in a very simple way. So is the last formula clear? Okay.
Yes.
So this is the final DFT pair. So H of n circularly convolved with X of n. If you take the DFT of that, you will get the product of the DFT coefficients. Okay. Now let us see it pictorially. So there is something called circular addressing. So circular shifting. Now first of all, you see X of n. So X of n is arranged anti-clockwise. So how do we do this circular shifting? So then we have this sequence X of n minus 2 modulo n. That means X0 shifts 2 steps ahead. So it is going to here. Whatever was at n equal to 2 is now occupied by X of 0. So this is modulo shifting by circularly moving the elements anti-clockwise in the sequence. But your origin remains fixed. N equal to 0 is the pointer stands here. So this involves more complicated operations because your pointer is static. So you're changing the value inside this circular buffer. You are changing all the values inside the circular buffer. Is it not? You are moving x0 ahead by 2 steps. So whatever was at x0 is being replaced by x6. Whatever was at x1 is being replaced by x7. So all values in the circular buffer are changed. So that is a very costly operation. So to avoid that, to do circular shifting, you just change the pointer to n equal to 0. Then everything remains the same in the circular buffer, only your pointer is changing. So for getting n minus 2 modulo n, you just move the pointer 2 steps ahead. Okay, that is in the clockwise direction. So now your pointer is no longer setting here as the n equal to 0, but it is setting here as n equal to 0. So that means whatever was coming here at n equal to 0 is still appearing at this place. So x6, which was appearing here in the circular buffer, which was shifted circular buffer, now is represented here only with the new pointer. So the pointer is now saying that that is supposed to be corresponding to n equal to 0. So x6 corresponds to n equal to 0. So you get the same effect of circular shifting, but without changing the elements inside the circular buffer. So this is a very important and nice concept which is used by all DSP processors, and we do circular shifting by just changing the pointer for index n equal to 0. I hope this diagram is clear. So this phenomenon is called circular addressing. Is this clear for everyone?
Yes, sir.
Then let me come to the final topic for today, which is circular convolution. So we have already seen that the inverse DFT of the product of the DFT coefficients xk and hk is y of n, with y of n is given as the circular convolution of hm with or hn with xn. So let us do a small example to clear up the ideas. So we are supposed to determine the 4-point circular convolution of the following 4-point sequences. So we have h of n given as h of 0, h of 1, h of 2, h of 3 as 1, 0, 1, 1. And x of n is again a 4-point sequence 0, 1, 2, 3. So the first step to do circular convolution is to change the time index from n to m. So we will now, for n equal to 0, we want to write hm and x of minus m modulo 4. So we will arrange on two concentric circles something like this. This corresponds to the case where you have n equal to 0. So h naught is arranged like this, counterclockwise fashion. You see, h naught is arranged like this: h naught, h1, h2, h3. This is the case for n equal to 0. So h naught, h1, h2, h3 is arranged in the circular buffer in counterclockwise direction. But we have folded x. We have got x minus m modulo 4. So once we folded x, we are going to represent x0, x1 here on this side, count in clockwise fashion. We are going to represent the x sequence, which is the folded sequence, x of minus m modulo 4, in clockwise direction. Okay, and then take the corresponding product. So we will get h naught into x naught plus h1 into x3 plus h2 into x2 plus h3 into x1. That will be our y0. Is it clear? To get the y1, that is n equal to 1, we are going to clockwise shift the x sequence. We are going to now get x of 1 minus m modulo 4. So we are going to clockwise shift this guy. So we are going to move, again it is getting shifted anti-clockwise because it is a circular shift. So it is getting shifted anti-clockwise, sorry. So to get x of 1 minus m, we are going to do an anti-clockwise shift. So whatever was at x0 will now go here. So at x0, you will get the next coefficient, which or the next sample, which is sitting here, it will come here. So we are doing an anti-clockwise shifting. This is circular shifting. So only for writing out x, which is the circularly folded sequence, we wrote it out in the clockwise fashion, and then we are doing everything anti-clockwise. So again, h naught is fixed, hm is fixed. We are only shifting x. So h is fixed, and now you will get y1 as equal to h naught into x1 plus h1 into x naught plus h2 into x3 plus h3 into x2. So like that, you will get 4 equations. All those 4 equations. So similarly, again, h2 minus m can be obtained by shifting this guy again one step ahead counterclockwise. So whatever is appearing x0 here now will appear x0 here. Okay, x0 will get shifted here. So this is counterclockwise shift. So you will get h of, or rather x of 2 minus m. H of m is always fixed. So this corresponds to y2 and this corresponds to y3. So now you will get 4 equations. So if you look at these 4 equations, you can write these 4 equations in terms of matrix vector product. It's very important. Whatever I'm just telling you is really, really important. So the circular convolution leads to, in this example, it leads to 4 equations. Ideally, it will lead to capital N number of equations. So right now you have restricted your capital N to be equal to 4. So you have 4-point sequences, h of n and x of n. And now you are going to do circular convolution between h of n and x of n. And you have got these 4 linear equations. So you can arrange these linear equations in a matrix vector product. So that matrix is seen here. Okay. So to calculate y0, you have x0, x3, x2, x1. So let us look here. We have x0, x3, x2, x1. Can you see from the circular buffer?
Yes.
All of you?
Yes. Yes, sir.
So now we have for y0, x0, x3, x2, x1 multiplied with h0, h1, h2, h3. So for the second, for n equal to 1 case, we have x1, x0, x3, x2. Let's see, x1, x0, x3, x2. For n equal to 2 case, x2, x1, x0, x3. So like that, you will get all these elements of this matrix. This matrix has a beautiful property that all the diagonal elements are the same. This main diagonal has all x zeros. This off diagonal is all x3s. This off diagonal is also all x2s. So identical diagonals and subdiagonals. Can you all see?
Yes.
So such a matrix is called a Toeplitz matrix. So if you do a linear convolution also, you will get a Toeplitz matrix. Okay. I don't know if people have taught you this in your signals and networks course or not, but I'm telling you this, that linear convolution, because it is linear in nature, can be written as a matrix vector product. So the convolved output y of n can be obtained as a matrix into a vector. So you can arrange the elements of x like this in a matrix, and the matrix will have all diagonal elements and subdiagonal elements equal. So that is, it is a Toeplitz matrix. Now, because we are doing a circular convolution, it has an additional property that the matrix, apart from being Toeplitz, it is also called circulant. What is circulant? X1 here is appearing here. X2 here is appearing here. X3 here is appearing here. And x0 here is appearing here. That means each row is a shifted version of the previous row. And similarly for the columns, x3 is appearing here, x2 is appearing here, x1 is appearing here, and x0 is appearing here. Can you see my cursor, everyone? This is a very important property that I'm trying to tell you. Circular convolution is also a linear operation. So apart from producing a Toeplitz matrix, it will produce a circulant matrix where each row and each column are circularly shifted versions of each other. That is why it is called a circulant matrix. So this is the final slide. With this, I come to the conclusion of the course. Important property to note is that every Toeplitz matrix is not circulant, but the reverse is true. Every circulant matrix is Toeplitz. But a Toeplitz matrix need not be circulant. That means this element need not appear here. This element need not appear here. And this element need not appear here. But the matrix will be Toeplitz. Okay, that means all its diagonals and off-diagonal elements are equal, or sub-diagonal elements are equal. But the matrix need not be circulant. That means its rows and columns are not circularly shifted versions of each other. So that happens when you do linear convolution. In linear convolution, you don't have the modulo n operation. So that is why you get a Toeplitz matrix. But because of the modulo n operation, you are doing circular shifting of the sequences. Therefore, you get a circulant matrix in circular convolution. So with this statement, I will end the course. So tomorrow you have the end semester exam at what time? Yeah, everyone? 3 o'clock. You want it at 3 o'clock to 6
Yes,
o'clock?
sir. 3 to 6.
Okay. So I am sending out a mail to all of you saying that tomorrow at 3 o'clock we will have the end semester exam. I'll share a Google folder and give you the link of that Google folder. Just like you had uploaded your answer scripts in that Google folder in the last mid-semester exam, similarly you will have to do. This time I will provide a Microsoft meeting link. Okay. So that because we have 99 students in the class, so because Google Meeting supports just about 100 people, so because of some duplication or anything, if we cross 100, then there is trouble. So I will send out a Microsoft meeting link for tomorrow's end semester exam. And I think all of you can access Microsoft meeting.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, if there is any trouble, I'll send out the Google Meeting link. Okay, don't worry. We are going to have the exam at 3 o'clock. So if there is any issue, I will revert back to Google Meeting, but we'll try a Microsoft Meeting because last time I faced some issues. Some people were out of the meeting and I had to add them again and again. So I faced some issues, so this time I will do a Microsoft meeting. So prepare well. The question paper is not so easy, and it is going to be a struggle to score marks. So prepare very well and come. So tomorrow at 3 o'clock, we will have the exam. Okay, everyone?
Sir?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sir, like if the number of elements in X and H matrix H are different, then how we can perform the convolution?
No, circular convolution is always done with identical number of sequences or identical length sequences, because circular convolution is the inverse of the IDFT of the product of two DFT coefficients. Yk is equal to hk into xk, and then you are taking the inverse DFT of that to get yn. That is leading to circular convolution, isn't it? So circular convolution always gets you the periodic sequence y tilde of n. That is the important distinction between linear convolution and circular convolution. You can read from the textbooks, you can read. Okay. We are multiplying n point DFTs, hk and xk, and then we are taking the inverse DFT to get circular convolution. Okay. Any more questions? Okay, so with this, I have nothing more to present, so I will stop. And I'll stop the class. So tomorrow you come at 3 o'clock. I'll share the Google folder and send out a mail to everyone now. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.